Reporting by our first guest tonight, Bob Woodward, forced Mitch McConnell to do something today that he has never done. Most people who have served in the United States Senate have never done what Mitch McConnell did today. Today, Mitch McConnell, for the first time in his 37 years in the Senate, went to the Senate floor to give a speech pleading with the House and Senate not to impeach a Supreme Court justice.
In the last few days, the latest chapter, the left's quest to delegitimize the Supreme Court, found its latest outlet. This time, it's a coordinated effort to nullify the presence of Justice Clarence Thomas on the court. The far left wants another crack at what they tried and failed to do way back in 1991. Washington Democrats are now trying to bully this exemplary judge of 30-plus years out of an entire legal subject or off the court altogether. Far-left House members are talking about dusting off their party's impeachment addiction for a third consecutive year.
You can live a lifetime in the United States Senate and never worry about a Supreme Court justice being impeached. In fact, you can live several lifetimes in the United States Senate and never worry about a Supreme Court justice being impeached, never even think about it. But Mitch McConnell is worried about that today after reporting by our first guest tonight, Bob Woodward and Robert Costa, about Clarence Thomas's wife's communications with the last Trump White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, about illegally overturning the presidential election. There is nothing more rare in American government than the impeachment of a Supreme Court justice. We have had more presidents assassinated than Supreme Court justices impeached. It happened only once, in 1804, when Justice Samuel Chase was impeached by the House for, quote, tending to prostitute the high judicial character with which he was invested to the low purpose of an electioneering partisan. Sound familiar? Evidence revealed by Bob Woodward indicates that Clarence Thomas might be guilty of at least that, as well as specific violations of federal law, as described on this program last night by Harvard Law professor Lawrence Tribe.
It specifically says that no justice shall participate in a matter where he has reason to know that his spouse or her spouse has an interest, and the interest here was very direct. What Clarence Thomas did was illegal, and if he continues to participate in matters that arise from the attempts to get information to the January 6th committee or anything related to the 2020 election, he is going to be violating the law again.
A majority of senators voted to convict Justice Chase in 1805. But not a two-thirds majority, and so Justice Chase remained on the Supreme Court until his death in 1811. Mitch McConnell knows that the evidence against Clarence Thomas is so damning at this point that he felt the need today to publicly stress that even if the House were to impeach Clarence Thomas, the Senate would do the same thing that it did for Samuel Chase. And this time, the Senate would not come close to a two-thirds vote to convict and remove Justice Thomas. Mitch McConnell has spent his entire political career, beginning in the early 1970s, reading earth-shattering investigative reporting by Bob Woodward, beginning with Bob Woodward's reporting on the Watergate crimes of the Nixon administration that forced President Nixon to resign. Mitch McConnell knows that when Bob Woodward reports stories that are very bad for people in power, those stories rarely, if ever, get better for those people as more evidence is revealed. Mitch McConnell knows that Bob Woodward's reporting of the evidence already gathered by the January 6th committee about Clarence Thomas's wife will only get worse as more of her communications with the Trump administration are likely to be revealed, including possibly with Jared Kushner, who will surely be asked by the committee when he appears for a voluntary interview tomorrow if he is the Jared in one of the texts reported by Bob Woodward and Robert Costa. On November 13th, she texted Meadows about her outreach to Jared, potentially a reference to Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law and senior White House advisor. She wrote, "Just forwarded to your Gmail an email I sent Jared this AM. Sidney Powell and improved coordination now will help the cavalry come and fraud exposed and America saved." Sidney Powell is the attorney who has been sanctioned by a federal judge for her improper conduct participating in Trump election cases. The wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas wanted Sidney Powell to be the lead lawyer for Donald Trump in cases that Mrs. Powell and everyone else cheering for those cases hoped would end up in the United States Supreme Court, where Clarence Thomas and a majority of the Supreme Court would then, in this vision, save America. That's what Virginia Thomas believed was at stake in the illegal attempts that she encouraged to overturn the presidential election. In an early morning text to Mark Meadows, Virginia Thomas wrote, "Mark, don't want to wake you. Sounds like Sidney and her team are getting inundated with evidence of fraud. Make a plan. Release the Kraken and save us from the left taking America down." Release the Kraken is a line from the movie The Clash of the Titans, referring to a giant sea monster. Given the delusional nature of Virginia Thomas's communications, it is not clear whether she is using that phrase literally or figuratively. In another text to Mark Meadows, Virginia Thomas supports another delusion. Quote, "Watermarked ballots in over 12 states have been part of a huge Trump and military white hat sting operation in key battleground states," she wrote. During that period, supporters of the QAnon extremist ideology embraced a false theory that Trump had watermarked mail-in ballots so he could track potential fraud. Now think about that. Virginia Thomas was hoping that it was true that the President of the United States tampered with ballots in over 12 states and had them illegally marked in a way that would allow the president to trace everything that happened to those ballots. Now, it would be a crime if the president did that, but it's also impossible for the president to do that. It's impossible on its face. No sane person could believe that. QAnon followers believe it, and Virginia Thomas wanted to believe it. A Supreme Court justice's spouse can be delusional. That in and of itself is not a scandal. A Supreme Court justice's spouse can have serious problems separating fact and fiction. A Supreme Court justice's spouse can have serious problems dealing with reality, recognizing reality. But a Supreme Court justice cannot have any such problems and fulfill his oath of office. A year and 2 months after the insurrection at the Capitol, Virginia Thomas first publicly revealed in a friendly interview that she attended Donald Trump's rally near the White House before the attack on the Capitol. She told a Trump-friendly interviewer that she left early because it was too cold. Now, imagine the scene at the Thomas dinner table on the night of January 6th, when the Capitol is still under siege. Did Clarence Thomas and Virginia Thomas not discuss anything that happened in Washington on that day, on January 6th? Were they watching TV while they were eating dinner like everyone else in Washington and watching what was happening at the Capitol? Were they talking about what they were seeing on TV? Did Clarence Thomas and Virginia Thomas discuss what was happening in Washington on January 6th like everyone else who lived through that in Washington, D.C.? Did Virginia Thomas not tell her husband at dinner on January 6th that she was at the Trump rally right before the attack on the Capitol? Did Clarence Thomas not realize at that moment that he could never participate in any Supreme Court cases involving January 6th? A year after Clarence and Virginia Thomas discussed whatever they discussed, at the dinner table on January 6th. 1 full year after that, Clarence Thomas participated in a Supreme Court decision about the release of Trump administration documents and communications involving the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Those communications obtained by the January 6th committee include communications written by and received by Clarence Thomas's wife. And Clarence Thomas was the only Supreme Court justice, the only one, who voted to prevent those communications from being delivered to the January 6th committee. Clarence Thomas' recorded decision as a member of the United States Supreme Court was to side with the people in the Trump administration, including Donald Trump, who were trying to illegally overturn a presidential election. He was the only Supreme Court justice who made that choice. No Supreme Court justice in history has ever been accused of or suspected of anything worse than what we already know Clarence Thomas did.